Hello everyone, my name is Anu and today we'll do the next chapter of class 5 English. It's Gullivers Travels. Okay, first of all tell me, do you know who was Gulliver? Yes, you must have read many stories about Gulliver and you must have seen some movies also, cartoon movies also, in which Gulliver has reached to a giant's place or to a tiny man's place. Yes, do you remember? Yes, and today we are going to read that chapter only. It's about Gulliver's Travels. Okay, let's start. Gulliver's Travels. When a person tells the story of his life in his own words, it is called an autobiography. And Gulliver, a sailor, was once caught in the land of giants. This is how he describes his experiences. Right? Let's see how Gulliver experienced when he was caught in a land of giants. What he faced. Okay? Let's see. Let's read. On the 16th of June 1730, we discovered land. Our captain sent a dozen men with vessels for water, if any could be found. So here Gulliver is, this is an autobiography of Gulliver in which he tells his life story on in his own words. Right? So now here Gulliver is telling us that on the 16th of June 1730, okay, this is a story of 1730 when we discovered land. And what is the meaning of discovered land? Why do they need of discovering a land, students? Yes, well, because Gulliver was a sailor and at that time he was sailing in the sea. They were in the ocean. And on 16th of June 1730, they discovered land. Okay, they found land in the sea. Our captain sent a dozen men with vessels for water. And here Gulliver is telling us that his captain sent a dozen men with vessels for water. His captain sent some men to that particular land that they discovered to search for water, if any could be found. He said, if you can find some water, just go and fetch some water from this land, because we are having shortage of water in the ship, right? Okay, then when we came to land, we saw no river or spring nor habitants. I went on to explore. The country was barren and rocky. And Gulliver was also one of the man who went on that particular land in search of water. But they didn't find any river there, any spring, and they didn't find anybody there. Nobody was living there. They didn't find any man. And I went on to the explore. And I means here Gulliver. Gulliver went on to explore the place. Now the country was barren and rocky. And what did he find? That the country was barren and rocky. Means there was rocks and hills all around and there was no vegetation. It was barren. He didn't find anybody there. He didn't find anybody there. Okay. Then what happens? I turned back to join the crew, only to see them getting into the boat and rowing for life to get to the ship. And Gulliver is telling us then when he turned back to join the crew means the other member who was there with him, who was there on the ship. And because he sent a dozen of men, means around 12 men the captain sent on that land to search for water. And all the other 11, they were getting into the boat and rowing for life to get to the ship. They were in the ship and they were rowing very fast to get to the ship, right? Then, before I could reach them, I observed a huge creature walking after them in the sea. And Gulliver also wanted to go with them into the ship, but before he could reach them, what did he observe? He saw a huge creature walking after them in the sea. He saw that a very huge man and giant kind of creature was walking after them. He was running after them into the sea as fast as he could, and he was running very fast. Who? That giant. The water of the ocean reached only till his knees. However, the monster was unable to overtake the speeding boat. Now, here, students, the giant, that man was so big that the sea water could reach only till his knees. Can you imagine? Well, but because they were in the boat and it was running very speedily, so that giant was not able to catch them. Okay, now let's see what happens next. I turned back quickly and climbed up a steep hill with fields of barley on either side and the corn rising up to 40 feet. There was a fence to pass from one field to the other. Now here Gulliver is telling that he turned back quickly. He ran away from that particular place where the giant creature was there. He turned back quickly and climbed up a steep hill. There was a steep hill, there was a straight, sharp hill, and there were fields of barley and corn, you know, and those fields, they were the corn and barley plants, they were up to 40 feet height, you know, and there was a fence to pass from one field to another, and there was a fence in between the fields. One has to cross that fence to reach to the other field. Okay, because one side there was barley field and on the other side there was corn field, right? Next, what happened? It was impossible for me to climb because every step was 6 feet high. I was trying to find a gap in the hedge when I discovered one of the inhabitants in the next field walking towards the fence. He said it was impossible for me to climb. He said that I was not able to climb that fence because the steps were 6 feet high. Can you see? Can you guess 6 feet? Because each step was 6 feet high and Gulliver was not able to climb on the fence. I was trying to find a gap in the hedge when I discovered one of the inhabitants in the next field walking towards the fence. And he tells us that he discovered he was trying to find a gap. He find a gap, and when he find a gap, when he find a gap between between the hedges of that fence, he discovered that one of the inhabitant in the next field was walking towards the fence. He saw that one creature, that one giant was coming towards the fence where Gulliver was hiding, right? Then he was of the same size and as the creature chasing the boat. I was struck with utmost fear and astonishment and ran to hide myself. And he said that creature, that giant, was also of the same height like the creature who was chasing the boat. And Gulliver was very scared. He was struck with fear and astonishment. He was astonished also. He was amazed and he ran to hide himself. Because he did not want that the giant creature see him and make him any harm. He called in a voice much louder than a trumpet. It sounded like thunder. 7 other monsters like him came towards the field, ready to reap the corn. Now that giant creature, he called some other men to come because his field, his corn was ready to reap, and he called them for help, right? And his sound was so louder that it was like trumpet. It was louder than a trumpet, and it sounded like thunder. Now, when he called some other men to come, 7 other monsters came towards his field, which was ready to reap. Next, the creature stopped reaping, picked me up between his thumb and forefinger, and brought me close to his eyes, 60 feet above the ground. Now he said that one of that creature saw Gulliver, and when he saw him, he stopped reaping the corn, and he picked the Gulliver between his thumb and forefinger, and he brought him closer to his eyes to see that what kind of creature is this. And it was 60 feet above the ground. That means that monster was 60 feet tall. And when he picked the Gulliver up towards and he took him towards his eyes, Gulliver was 60 feet above the ground. Yes? He looked at me with curiosity and blew my hair aside to get a better view of my face. Now he said that creature, he was very curious to see that who am I and what kind of doll am I. And so what he did, he blew off my hair, and he blew my hair aside to get a better view of my face, okay, so that he could see my face easily. Then he called his friends and gently placed me in the ground. They all sat on the ground to take a good look at me. Now he called his other friends also, that see, I have caught something, just look at this thing, what I found. And then he called all the other men. They all sat on the ground, and they all sat on the ground to see me, to have a look at me. Okay, and everybody started staring me. Who is me here? Gulliver. Okay. I walked slowly backward and forward, pulled off my hat, and made a low bow towards the farmers. I tried to speak to them loudly in several languages. Each time I did so, the farmer who picked me up held his ear very close to me, but in vain. Now, when everybody was sitting down on the ground to see Gulliver, now Gulliver also started doing some actions. He started, he moved and walked slowly backward and forward. He took off his hat and make a bow, and he tried to speak to them loudly in several languages, but every time Gulliver said something, the farmer who picked him up, he held his ear near to his mouth so that he could hear what he is saying and he could understand what he is saying. But all in vain. All in vain means everything was useless. Those creatures, those giants, they were not able to listen. They were not able to hear what Gulliver was telling them, and they were not able to understand what he is trying to tell them. Then the farmer took me to his house and placed me at some distance on the dining table, which was 30 feet high from the floor. Dinner was brought for the farmer in a dish which was 10 feet in diameter. Okay, now he is telling that that farmer who found Gulliver, he took him to his house and he put him on the dining table at some distance. And that dining table was 30 feet height from the floor. And dinner was brought for the farmer. when dinner was brought from the farmer, it was in a dish, and that dish was 10 feet in diameter. The diameter of that dish was 10 feet, you know. That means it was such a big dish, and it was such a big table, and Gulliver was kept there on the table. Then the farmer's wife crumbled some bread and placed before me. In the middle of the dinner, I heard a noise behind me. It was the purring of a cat that was 10 times larger than an ox. The farmer's wife was stroking him. Now, the farmer's wife, she crumbled some bread and placed in front of Gulliver so that he can eat something. And when he was having dinner, he heard a noise, and that noise was of his cat, of the farmer's cat. And that cat was so big that it was 10 times larger than an ox. Okay, and farmer's wife was, she was stroking him. She was stroking him. Next, the farmer's wife crumbled some bread and placed before me. That is done. Then entered the farmer's 1-year-old son in the arms of a lady. He said, then what happens after the cat? Who came? Then came the farmer's 1-year-old son. Okay, and it was in the arm of a lady. Maybe she may be the servant or someone. On seeing me, the child grabbed me from the table and put my head into his mouth. Okay, and when that child saw Gulliver, he thought that it might be some kind of doll or a toy. So he put Gulliver. So he took the Gulliver in his hand. He grabbed the Gulliver in his hand, and he tried to put him into his mouth. As you know, children, that small children, small babies, they have a tendency to, uh, you know, to eat everything they found. So the same thing there also, that farmer's son, he also, when he found Gulliver on the table, he put him off and he tried to eat him in his mouth, and he put his head into his mouth later. And then who saved him? Farmer's wife. And later she put me on her own bed and covered me with a clean white handkerchief. I slept dreaming of my home with my wife and my children. Now, Gulliver was about to die. Then who saved him? Then his that farmer's wife, he saved him, and she put me on her own bed, and then she takes Gulliver on her own bed, and she put me on her bed and covered Gulliver with a clean white handkerchief. And now then Gulliver slept, and he started dreaming of his home, his wife, and his children. So this is how that Gulliver felt and experienced when he was caught in a land of giants. Right? Now let's see, students, the new words of this lesson. First is bellowing. It means very loud voice, and we can use it in a sentence. The bellowing animals were driven towards the torrent. Then inhabitants. Inhabitants means occupants. The inhabitants of this island are friendly and generous. Barren. Barren means land with no vegetation. And we can use this in sentence like, this house is surrounded by barren land. Astonishment. Astonishment means greatly surprised. And we can use it like, he agape in astonishment. Then crumbled. Crumbled means broken into pieces. And we can use it in a sentence like, he crumbled some bread and threw it before the birds. Next we have grab. Grab its meaning here is pick suddenly. So usage is he grabbed a sandwich and put it into his mouth. Right? Now let's see the question answers. First is, why did the captain send the man to the land? So the answer is the captain sent the man to the land to look for water. Why did the man rush back to the ship? So the answer is the man rushed back to the ship because they were chased by a giant. Now next, choose the correct answer. The giant carried a reaping hook because he was fighting with the other giants, he was going to reap the corn, or he wanted to frighten Gulliver. So the correct answer is he was going to reap the corn. Second is they put Gulliver on the ground to look at him because they had never seen a human before. They thought he was a doll. They had never seen such a tiny man. Okay, tell me the right answer. Yes, they had never seen such a tiny man. Next, Gulliver was a farmer, sailor, dwarf, a giant. So the answer is a sailor. Now let's see the next exercise, students. Name the creature to whom you would look like Gulliver. The creature is now extinct. The word begins with the letter D. Can you tell me? Yes, it is dinosaur. Because we will look very tiny in front of dinosaur na, like Gulliver was in front of those creatures, those giants. And this word is starting with D, D for dinosaur. Okay, next. From the text, write the sentences that tells you the following. First, the giant reapers were fascinated by Gulliver. Can you tell me by which line do you find this? Answer is they all sat on the ground to take a good look at me. So it means they were fascinated, they were very surprised, right? And they were attracted by Gulliver. That's why they all sat down on the ground to take a look at him, to have a good look at him. Yes? Okay. Now Gulliver was a learned man. I tried to speak to them in several languages. In so many languages he tried to talk to them. This shows that Gulliver was a learned man because he knows so many languages. Yes. The farmer's son thought Gulliver was a toy. On seeing me, the child grabbed me from the table and put my head into his mouth. This shows that that farmer's son thought that Gulliver was a toy because he grabbed him and he tried to eat him. The farmer's wife was a kind-hearted woman. How do you know this? Later she put me on her own bed and covered me with a clean white handkerchief. So we can know because later on what she did, she put him on her own bed and she covered him with a white hanky. That shows that she was a kind lady. Okay, now students, here next we have it's simile. Do you know what a simile is? It's not smile, it's simile. A simile is a figure of speech that directly compares two things. With the help of what is simile? Simile, it's a figure of speech that directly compares two things, like it's an expression comparing one thing with another, always including the words as or like. right? Let's see some examples. The similes are there in your text. Now complete the following using the words given in the box. So, like as light as a feather, So you can see this. These are called simile because where you can compare two things. Here, as light as a feather. Here we are comparing feather with that it is very light. It is as light as a feather, as slow as a tortoise. If we are talking about someone who is very slow, so we can say that he is as slow as a tortoise. As sweet as honey, because honey's tendency is sweet, so we will compare anything which is sweet to honey. So we'll say as sweet as honey. As white as snow, as strong as an ox, as black as night, as red as a rose, as warm as a toast, as gentle as a breeze. Okay, here we are comparing two tendencies. Now let's see the next question. You can understand it more clearly. Use the above expression to complete the following sentences. The old man's hair is as white as snow. His feet were as cold as, what is cold? Ice. The newspaper boy was as slow, what is slow? As a tortoise delivering the papers. I felt as light as a feather after exercising. Right? Now, complete the following suitably. I was sitting in a taxi yesterday when I saw her. You can see that these are in past form. Here it was written I was sitting. So we'll say when I saw her. He was cleaning out his cupboard when he found his old photograph. Dash, a dog ran out onto the road. So we'll say I was passing along the street when a dog ran out onto the road. Then dash, the teacher walked into the room. The boys were quarreling when the teacher walked into the room. Correct the use of the describing words in the following sentences. Like this is the simpler problem of them all. So students, you know that when to use the positive degree, when to use the comparative, and when to use the superlative degree in the describing word, in the adjectives, right? So like you can see this is wrongly written that this is the simpler problem of them all. When we are talking about of them all, we should write the simplest, we should write the superlative degree. So here we'll write this is the simplest problem of them all. Next, which is the lightest of the two parcels? Now you can see here we are talking about two parcels. So we are comparing. So we should write comparative degree. So which is the lighter of the two parcels we'll write. Okay. Next, he is cleverer than I am. Okay, cleverer is okay, but we will write he is cleverer than me. I like this the best of the two. Now two are there, so we'll write comparative. So I like this better of the two. The flood became badder as the rain increased. And you know that the comparative degree of bad is worse. So the flood became worse as the rain is increased. Okay. So next, punctuate the following sentences using capital letters, full stops, commas, question marks, apostrophe, exclamation mark, wherever necessary. You can see this is a short letter. Dear Samir, I'm sending you a photograph of my newest pet. Frisky is a bulldog and a very playful puppy, but next summer he should the old enough to go with us on our long walks. I'm sure you are looking forward to seeing him. I know you will like him. Warm regards, Sanju. As you can see that there is no commas, no full stop. So this is how we read it. But to make it more effective, we should use punctuation marks and we will write it like this. Dear Samir, may put a full stop then. I am sending you a photograph of my newest pet. Full stop. Frisky is a bulldog and a very playful puppy. By next summer, he should be old enough to go with us on our long walks. I'm sure you are looking forward to see him. I know you will like him. Warm regards, comma, Sanju. Okay, so this is how you have to punctuate it. Now some more practice exercises for punctuations are like punctuate the following sentences. Next Wednesday, my sister Meeta is going to join the State Bank of India. Now here we'll write like this. Next Wednesday, my sister, comma, Meeta is going to join the State Bank of India. Full stop. Then the dog wags its tail when it's pleased, but a cat waves its tail when it's angry. So here the dog wags its tail when it's pleased, but a cat waves its tail when it's angry. We'll put a apostrophe after when it. Next, when I went fishing, I caught an old shoe, a plastic bag, and a bad cold. So we'll write, when I went fishing, I caught an old shoe, comma, a plastic bag, and a bad cold. She fed the baby, washed the dishes, put the lights off, and went to sleep. So we'll write, she fed the baby, comma, washed the dishes, comma, put off the lights off, and went to sleep. Full stop. Wasn't Tim born on the 26th of January 1989? So we'll, as you know that this is a question mark, so we'll put a question mark at the end. Oh no, the bus was gone. So oh no is a exclamation mark. So we'll write, oh no, the bus has gone. Right? And we'll put a exclamation mark after no. Oh no. Okay. Let's see next. Well, students, this was an exercise in your textbook. You have to fill in the blanks. A giant tree. Can you tell me a giant tree? Well, you can see this is a giant tree. It is called redwood trees of California. There are so many giant trees are found which are called redwood trees. A giant bird is ostrich. You can see the picture, right? Then next we have a giant land animal. Which is a giant land animal? An elephant. Very good. Next, a giant reptile is anaconda. It's a giant one. Okay. Then a giant aeroplane, and it's A380. This is a giant one, Airbus aeroplane. Okay, students, and a giant water creature is whale. Yes, it is a really giant water creature, right? So students, that's it. That's all for now. Thank you for watching the video. Stay tuned with me for my next videos. Till then, take care and enjoy learning.